In one of the most recent patches from BSG, we got the new Volumetric Light addition into Escape from Tarkov. You can toggle this on or off, and in this quick video I'm going to show you what it does, what it controls in the game, and if you should run it on or off based on your preference. If this video helps you, make sure to hit the usual buttons down below, join my Discord if you need any more tips or tricks to get some better performance, and ask me when I'm live as well. The times are on screen. You can think of volumetric lighting as basically a light placing an object inside of a world and then making it somewhat transparent to make it look like the light is traveling through fog or smoke or any sort of gas to make it seem like it's being dispersed. So you can see here, like on interchange, for example, that some lights sort of have a little bit of a glow around them, especially in the distance over there, like you can see under that light and with some of the lighting in the distance. This is one of the main ways that Tarkov handles lighting and tries to make spaces brighter. So for example, when you go to disable it, which by the way, you need to restart your raid, you need to go to the next raid in order for it to enable, so let me do that. And just like that, I made Tarkov into an indie horror title. And as you can see in the distance, the lights are, well, I think they actually turned off now to an extent, but you can see a lot of the glow around a lot of the things in the distance is sort of just gone. A lot of the lighting just doesn't have the same effect anymore. And you'll also notice too at different floodlights around the map, maybe I'll put a picture on the screen for you, that whole glow around them is also gone completely. I can already hear Labs mains frothing at the mouth at the opportunity to run 4x3 and have the supreme clarity of not having any sort of fog, but just not the fog effect and stuff like that still exists. That's still there regardless of whether you use volumetrics or not. I'm not gonna lie, it's getting brighter outside, but it's just getting darker in the mall, and I don't know what's going on. This is not what I was seeing before. I don't know what happened to the lights, just like all turned on. I gotta go investigate this, give me a second. Seems like some of the lights might have turned off, but it still is definitely darker. And that's gonna be what you're gonna see for most locations. The game is going to look a little bit darker, but on the flip side, you'll have less of that foggy effect around certain light sources. Of course, for the competitive people out there, my recommendation would probably just to be turn off volumetric lighting and then crank that gamma. But if you don't have sweat stains on your chair, you may want to just decide to keep it on for the increased visual fidelity and how it looks in the game. I think taking away volumetric lighting kind of decreases the image quality in quite a substantial way. It sort of gets rid of some of the atmosphere. But in some scenes, it doesn't matter as much. Like here, it doesn't look too bad. But as you can see in some of the mall, it just sort of drains the life and some of the lighting out of the mall. Using ICAT, I got a couple of screenshots for us to directly compare. And I'm going to split screen this just to make it a bit easier for us to see the difference. This is nighttime interchange. Just keep that in mind. And this is without any sort of volumetric lighting. You can clearly see that a lot of the light sources are just kind of there, and there is no sort of sense that there is any sort of bright light in the distance here. All of this seems very dark and not lit properly. Now, if you cranked your brightness, then obviously you might be able to see a little bit further, but it sort of gets into a mess the further you go, and you can't really pick out what's going on, especially if a PMC peeked their head over this. It would be kind of hard to silhouette them. Switching over to volumetric lighting on completely changes the entire look of the image. And yes, this is still nighttime. You can clearly see that a lot further things are still lit. The Escalade still has a lot of silhouetting possible. So for example, if a PMC peeked their head over this, you would be able to see that PMC a lot easier than if you were to have this off. I feel like that's very apparent just by that difference alone. Not to mention, even in the shop over here, going between off and on, the difference in brightness is quite substantial, and that's purely because of volumetric lighting's effect on how you see in the distance and how these lights create the light. Like I said, Tarkov, depending on the circumstance, quite heavily relies on that volumetric lighting to make things look bright, and when you turn that off, a lot of things just don't look bright anymore. It looks quite awkward to have this light just sort of shining over here, but not really any sort of glare towards the camera. The second you turn that on, it seems a lot more apparent. And also the very bright lights up here seem to just not really be lights anymore. Just for you to compare as well, this is the place that we were just at, and you can see some of the lighting in the background before. This is also at nighttime, by the way, not daytime. And then the second I turn off volumetric lighting, it's like I turned off the power to the entire building. Very dark, and you will have to use some sort of post effects or other filters to I'm not going to name names of the filters, to contradict this, because you can clearly see, like, for example, if somebody was hiding over here, not that they could, but they would be much more easily hidden here than here. Quite easy to see that difference. Now, don't worry, I hear your cries. Does this actually affect your performance? It depends. When you're CPU bottlenecked, which is what a lot of people are when they're looking for more performance, this does nothing. I tested it on streets, and maybe in more intensive scenarios you might be able to find a small difference, but generally, volumetrics are entirely related to your graphics card's performance and shouldn't affect your CPU bound performance anyway. That being said, the effect on your GPU bottlenecked performance will vary heavily depending on where you are and how much of this technique is being utilized within the scene. As far as Tarkov goes, I saw in a test environment where I was on interchange about a 10% difference. Though the keen-eyed among you might have noticed that in my screenshots with volumetric off versus on, with this being on in the top left and this being off in the top right. Jesus, not the left. Oh my god. But the keen-eyed among you might have noticed that for volumetrics off versus on in this scene that I showed a while back, that I was at 240 FPS, of course in offline raid, when I was GPU bottlenecked without volumetric lighting, and then when I turned volumetric lighting on, that switched over to essentially 200, which is a 18%, something like that, difference. So a bit more of a difference there, but as you can see, there's a lot more volumetric lighting being showcased in this scene, whereas in that benchmark, I was at the front of interchange looking down the hallway, which had less overall instances of volumetric lighting. That's why I'm saying your mileage will vary on how much this helps your performance. I think BSG might have said that this helps lower end PCs just because of the fact that they need every bit that they can get, especially if they're running on lower end graphics card. I can see that boost being the difference between things being playable or not playable, but again, it all depends on the CPU hardware they're using. Also, from what I saw on factory, I just loaded up a couple factories after fully closing the game and relaunching it for the first time. There was maybe a 10% difference in VRAM consumption, which could help lower end PCs, especially the ones that are maybe using like iGPUs to reduce their overall VRAM and RAM consumption. Overall though, I don't think that that's going to be anything major. Maybe they have some more internal testing that they did to validate that it was, but in my case, I don't think that's going to be something that I'm going to need to worry about, and I think for now that I'm probably going to keep running volumetric lighting. For the Prestige 2 players out there though, you may want to try volumetric lighting off and upping your brightness settings a little bit to try to get that better clarity through light sources. Just to make sure I include this part in the video, and I'm sorry if this makes you worried, Giga Beef, but as far as I could tell, there isn't a major change to the flashlight quality. This is with the GTL 21 flashlight. I'll put the actual name of it on screen because I forgot what it's called. And you could see on this hallway in factory here, and I shot out this light by the way so it wasn't flickering to affect the outcome, that there wasn't really a difference in the clarity of how I could see that PMC between the two different volumetric mode options versus off and on. There wasn't really any difference to how I could see him. I would argue that even though it's slightly darker, you still see him just the same. It's not really the end of the world here. Now, I did also get a couple screenshots of off versus on for a bit closer to the light source, and even then, I don't think that this makes a difference here. Genuinely, either way, I think you're still going to get blinded to shit, and this does not solve that flashlight meta by just disabling volumetric lighting. But yeah, that's it for this setting. I hope this video helped you. I tried to make this as quick as possible and a quick breakdown so you guys understood what it was and the pros and cons. I may make a video in the future about the DLSS 4 preset options and what I think would be the best ones to choose based on your hardware. If you're interested in that, let me know, and I'll try to make my video about it coming soon. For now, if this video helped you, make sure to hit the usual buttons down below, and if you need some more additional help, please do make sure to join our Discord with 3,000 members strong in there. Make sure you come in and join that community. I'll be live on Twitch and YouTube Friday 6:30 p.m. CST and Sunday 1:30 p.m. CST. So make sure you stop in and ask me your questions there too. And for now, this will be Clem, clocking out. Later.